These are the 5 toxic crushes that might seem exciting now, but could lead to emotional devastation later. The emotionally unavailable crush. We've all been there, crushing on someone who seems perfect from a distance but keeps you at arm's length emotionally. The emotionally unavailable crush might text you constantly one day, then disappear for a week. They'll share surface-level details about their lives but clam up when conversations get deeper. "I thought he was just mysterious," my friend Jamie told me after months of pursuing someone who could never commit to plans more than 24 hours in advance. But eventually, I realized he wasn't mysterious. He was just incapable of real emotional connection. The signs are subtle but consistent. They avoid discussing the future, they get defensive when you bring up conflicts, and they emphasize their independence and need for space to an extreme degree. Their body language often contradicts their words. They might say they're happy to see you, but their crossed arms and limited eye contact tell a different story. What makes this crush particularly toxic is how they keep you hoping. The occasional moments of vulnerability they show make you think maybe they're finally opening up. But these moments are usually followed by even longer periods of distance. Implement the 48-hour rule. If they consistently take more than 48 hours to respond to messages without explanation, that's not busy. That's a pattern of emotional unavailability. Be honest with yourself about whether you're attracted to them because they're unavailable. Sometimes we pursue these people precisely because the challenge feels exciting, or because it feels safe to love someone who can't love us back. But ask yourself this: are you falling for their potential or who they actually are right now? Because one exists only in your imagination. The love bomber crush. On the opposite end of the spectrum from the emotionally unavailable is the love bomber. This person doesn't just show interest. They overwhelm you with attention, compliments, gifts, and declarations of how perfect you are. They want to be exclusive after the first date. They're planning vacations together by week 2. Love bombing isn't genuine affection, it's a manipulation tactic. The early intensity isn't a reflection of how much they care. It's about making you dependent on their validation. Once they feel they've got you, the behavior often switches dramatically. The dangerous part? When they pull back, you'll chase that early high, trying to win back the person who seemed so infatuated with you at the beginning. Establish a compliment ratio. If someone is giving you 15 extreme compliments a day when they barely know you, that's a warning sign, not romance. Healthy relationships build gradually. Try deliberately slowing things down, suggest postponing that weekend getaway they're planning, or mention you're not ready for exclusivity. A healthy person will respect your boundaries. A love bomber will push harder or make you feel guilty for pumping the brakes. Speaking of boundaries, do you find yourself struggling to establish them with crushes? That brings me to our next toxic type. The isolator crush. This crush might seem intensely devoted to you at first. The problem? They want you all to themselves. The isolator sees your other relationships as competition rather than an essential part of your life. They'll make subtle comments about your friends. "Don't you think Sarah is kind of negative for you?" Or, "Your sister seems controlling." They'll create situations where you have to choose between them and others. When you make plans without them, they respond with disappointment or even anger. One of my friends noticed this pattern with his crush when she would text incessantly during his nights out with friends. At first, I thought she just missed me. Then I realized she was monitoring me. If I didn't respond quickly enough, she'd ask who I was talking to or imply my friends were a bad influence. Eventually, I was declining invitations just to avoid the drama afterward. This type of crush becomes toxic because isolation makes you vulnerable. When they've successfully separated you from your support network, you become dependent on them emotionally, making it harder to recognize other problematic behaviors. Implement the friend test. Introduce your crush to a close friend and later ask for their honest impression. Sometimes others can see warning signs we miss when infatuated. Also, establish a non-negotiable social commitment that your crush isn't part of, like a weekly friend meetup or family dinner, and note their reaction. Someone who respects healthy boundaries will encourage these connections rather than compete with them. And remember, anyone who loves you wants what makes you happy, not just what makes them feel secure. The user crush. They always seem to need something: a ride to the airport, help with their resume, someone to walk their dog when they're away for the weekend. And somehow you're always the person they call. The user crush is easy to spot in hindsight, but challenging to recognize when you're caught up in your feelings. They show heightened interest when they need something, but become mysteriously busy when you need support. The relationship feels unbalanced. You're putting in effort, time, and often resources, while getting little in return except perhaps the occasional breadcrumb of attention. I had this huge crush on my coworker. For 6 months, I helped him with projects, brought him coffee, even stayed late to help him meet deadlines. When I finally asked him to grab dinner, he seemed surprised and said he'd always seen me as just a friend. Yet the next day, he asked if I could help with another project. What makes this dynamic so toxic is how it erodes your self-worth over time. You start to believe that your value to others is based on what you can provide rather than who you are. Start tracking the give and take. Create a simple note in your phone documenting when they reach out to you versus when you reach out to them and what each interaction involves. Is there a pattern of them initiating contact only when they need something? Also, practice saying no to a small request and see how they respond. Users often react with surprise, guilt-tripping, or sudden coldness when their requests are denied. But wait, there's one more type of toxic crush that might be the most damaging of all: the humiliator/bragger crush. This type of crush has a fragile ego that needs constant feeding, often at your expense. They might take jokes too far, embarrassing you in front of others, or perhaps they discovered your feelings for them, and instead of respectfully addressing it, they've shared this information with others or used it to boost their own ego. The humiliator/bragger crush makes themselves feel bigger by making others feel smaller. They might seem charming and popular, but pay attention to how they talk about others behind their backs, or how they treat people they consider beneath them, like service workers or new employees. This crush is toxic because they fundamentally lack empathy. Today, you might be the person they're interested in, but tomorrow you could be the person they're putting down to impress someone new. Apply the restaurant test. Pay attention to how they treat servers, baristas, or retail workers. Research shows this is a reliable indicator of character. Also, introduce a boundary the next time they tease or embarrass you. "I don't find that funny," or "I'd prefer if you didn't joke about that." Their response will tell you everything: respect for your feelings or dismissal of them. Remember, someone who builds themselves up by tearing others down has fundamental insecurities that aren't your responsibility to fix. Protecting your heart. Now that you recognize these 5 toxic crushes, you might be wondering, what if I'm already involved with someone like this? First, don't blame yourself. These patterns can be subtle at first, and strong feelings have a way of clouding our judgment. The good news is that awareness is the first step toward change. Sometimes simply recognizing these patterns makes it easier to emotionally disengage. Other times you might need additional support from friends, family, or even a professional counselor. What's most important is remembering that crushes should add joy to your life, not stress or self-doubt. You deserve someone who sees your worth, respects your boundaries, and adds genuine value to your life, not someone who depletes your energy, isolates you from loved ones, or uses you for their own benefit. Today, take a moment to reflect on your current crush or recent relationships. Do you see any of these patterns? If so, it might be time to redirect that emotional energy toward people and pursuits that truly deserve it. Because here's the truth: the time you spend chasing toxic crushes is time you could be spending finding someone who actually deserves your heart, or better yet, building a life so fulfilling that the right person will feel lucky to be part of it. Your feelings are valid, but they aren't always reliable guides. Sometimes the strongest attractions lead to the most painful lessons. But with awareness and self-respect, you can learn to distinguish between exciting butterflies and warning signs, saving yourself from unnecessary heartache and opening yourself to healthier connections. After all, the most important relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. Make sure you're treating yourself with the same respect and care you hope to receive from others. Drop down your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more.